Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the University of Alberta, especially that concerns our esteemed guests coming from afar who are joining a wonderful conference on religion and war in Ukraine. Thank you for joining me tonight and allow me to start the program. My name is Natalia Hanenko-Friesen. I'm the director of the Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies. And we gather today on the Treaty 6 territory in 𝘈𝘯𝘥 known as a house on Beaver Hills, the city of Edmonton. And we're gathering on traditional lands of many, many indigenous peoples, including the Cree, the Blackfoot, the Dene, the Métis, and many, many other peoples. At the Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies, we see and understand the connection between the land and the people very well. And we recognize, probably with our hearts and guts these days, the important connection exactly between the rights people hold to the land and how they sustain themselves as a people and how they sustain their culture. And we also know very well these days what might happen to a people when their rights to their land are violated or taken away. We thank our indigenous ancestors for caring for this land. We appreciate living and working and learning here together with indigenous peoples. And in Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies, we take this purpose and this goal to work towards reconciliation in very practical terms. I'm not sure how many of you know, but we do, for the last 3 years, we do run an important award for the study of indigenous Ukrainian relations. Also this year, we've launched another important initiative jointly with the Faculty of Native Studies to support an incoming PhD student to pursue the Crimean Tatar studies as indigenous studies at the University of Alberta. And it is also in recognition of this very important connection between the land and people that CIOS and myself are very pleased to welcome and launch this very important exhibit that came all the way from Kyiv, Ukraine. For a period of 2 months, we at CIOS have been partaking in the initiative which we refer gently to as 210 initiative, commemorating the 2nd anniversary since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Russia of Ukraine in February 2022, and of course commemorating the 10th anniversary since the Russian war in Ukraine began. The Russian full-scale invasion, of course, aims to destroy not just people or democratic foundations upon the contemporary sovereign Ukraine is founded, but also its culture, its heritage, its language, its history. And since the beginning of the war, about 18,000 cultural sites and heritage sites have been destroyed thus far. The National Museum of Heavenly Hundred and of Revolution and Dignity, the one we know as the Maidan Museum, has been on the front lines defending Ukrainian tangible heritage through emergency response. And the museum has been actively involved in the documentation of losses and destruction which the Russian Federation and its troops committed on the territory of Ukraine in an attempt to preserve and defend this very heritage. The exhibit we are here to explore presents just one such case of cultural heritage defense. And I'm especially very pleased to welcome today Dr. Ihor Poshyvailo to lead us through the stories behind these powerful images, which you probably have already explored. Ihor Poshyvailo is the Director General of the National Memorial to the Heavenly Hundred Heroes and the Revolution of Dignity Museum. He is a cultural activist, ethnologist, museologist, cultural manager, and art curator. Ihor is also an ex-chairman of the Museum Council at the Ukrainian Ministry of Culture and the International Council of Museums International Committee on Disaster Resilient Museums. Ihor holds PhD in history. He was a Fulbright at the Smithsonian Institution, an international fellow at the DeVos Institute of Arts Management at the Kennedy Center. He was also a participant, lecturer, and mentor of the First Aid to Cultural Heritage in Times of Crisis training courses in Netherlands, US, and Italy. When the full-scale Russian invasion started in February 2022, 2022, Ihor served as the initiator, co-founder, and coordinator of the Heritage Emergency Response Initiative, 𝘎𝘬𝘳, and a member of the National Council for the Recovery of Ukraine from the War. Ihor will speak today for about 20-25 minutes, and if space allows, he could probably even offer a small tour. And then we will enjoy a small reception afterwards. And then, of course, I invite you also to be part of our Memorial Maidan Museum Memorial Lecture at the Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies, which will take place at 7 p.m. sharp. So we have all this time to enjoy right now with Ihor, and I would like to welcome Dr. Poshyvailo to share his stories behind those images. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and Slava Ukraini. It's a big pleasure and honor to be here to bring you some voices of Ukraine, today's Ukraine, which is fighting for its historical memory, for its national identity, for its religious freedom. And we are so grateful to our partners, to the Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies, to Alberta University, for bringing this exhibition. It's quite small, it's very really traveling pop-up exhibition, but it tells a lot of stories about what's going on in Ukraine today. And it's a big importance that we managed to bring this exhibition here to Canada. Original exhibition which consists not only of photographs, but also a lot of artifacts which we collected in the damaged regions of Ukraine, mostly in the occupied territories, just documenting the crimes of Russia against Ukraine. It was opened last May in Kyiv, in very symbolic religious space in 𝘗𝘬𝘳𝘥 𝘛𝘩𝘪𝘴𝘦, in so-called 𝘕𝘓𝑛𝑎 𝑝alata, as a process of decolonization, or de-Russification, as sometimes we say in Ukraine, in this 𝘕𝘓𝑛𝑎 𝑝alata. So it was opened by Metropolitan Epiphany, and it was very important to us to tell the story to wider audiences about, not only about the damaged temples, Orthodox churches, evangelist churches, some mosques, synagogues, but a lot of other religious sites, starting from famous like Sviatohirsk Lavra in the Donetsk region, which was founded 13th century, but finalizing, for example, small churches founded a few decades ago when Ukraine regained independence in the former village schools, for example, like in the village of 𝘗𝘬𝘺 in Kherson region, where you cannot find not only survived houses, but even small barns. Everything is completely destroyed, including this small church, and you can see some photographs here. So, in general, we have some statistics which is shocking. More than 600 religious sites have been damaged, looted, or completely destructed. But of course, this statistics is not complete, as Ukraine has no access to temporary occupied territories, and we can just guess how many, much more damaged religious sites will be later enrolled into this dramatic list of the damaged religious heritage of Ukraine. And in this more than 600 damaged, looted, destructed religious objects, sites, the biggest part is, of course, churches which belong to Orthodox Church of Ukraine, affiliated with Moscow Patriarchate. It's more than 180. Some part, about 60, belong to Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Ukraine. And of course, in this list, we have 12 synagogues, we have 8 mosques, or Muslim religious sites or centers, Islamic centers, and of course, a lot of other, like evangelist churches, Baptist churches. Fantastic number, and for us, it's also documenting this damage we talk to local people, and we understand how important the churches, the temples, the religious centers are for local communities, especially in these times of war, in these times of crisis. And this story is not only about the damaged buildings. This is a story also about the local communities and about the leaders of those religious communities, because, as you may know, a lot of clergymen were tortured and a lot of them were killed by the occupation regime. And this process started when the war began in 2014 in Crimea, when the Ukrainian church, not affiliated with Moscow Patriarchate, was made to close. The clergymen were forced to leave their parishes. So this situation, on the other hand, and this exhibition is telling not only about damage, it talks about the resilience of Ukrainian people. It also tells the reason of this war. What is it about? It's not only about the territory. It's not about political ambitions. It's also about rediscovering our historical memory, reinforcing our national identity and fighting for our religious freedom. At the opening of this exhibition a year ago in Kyiv, the Minister of Culture told that fighting and shelling Ukrainian temples, the Russian forces, they fire at God himself. So paying no attention to the importance of religion. And in this connection, we understand that it's important not only to document the crimes of invaders, but also to do this work with a hope that earlier or later these temples, this important for local religious communities, sites will be reconstructed, rebuilt. And we have a lot of signs of this process. For example, one of the famous stories about the church in the village of 𝘓𝘬𝘈𝘥, close to Chernihiv. It's a brick church built in 1913 on the site where old wooden church was. And it was destructed because Russian forces organized a kind of a headquarters and a military and food warehouse. And they tortured people, and even some people were killed inside the church. And because during the battle for this village, the church was detonated. All those armory was detonated inside. And symbolically, only one fresco left. Everything is completely burned. But last year on Easter, the clergymen and the local community started to come back to return this place to life, and they started sermons, so also a sign of resilience and resistance. Also quite interesting that documenting the damaged, not only temples, religious sites, but also cultural institutions, museums, archives, libraries. We have noted that Russians use them as a kind of a shield for themselves, and they often changed the functionality of the sites, especially when we speak about the churches. There is one case of 𝘓𝘠𝘶 𝘠𝘭𝘭. This is a church, a brick church, 1826 was built. It was transformed into a military hospital. And this church, which survived the First World War, the Second World War, was selected by Russian forces as the military hospital from only one reason. When they invaded the village, they asked local people, tell us, show us the most strongest building in the village. And of course, there were no, it's a village, a small village, and the Russians tested the church by firing from tank into its dome. So you can see the photograph, it's a big dome, hole in a dome. So they tested, the church survived, so they used it for their hospital, for their military activities. And we understand that all these photographs are kind of evidence of the war crimes of Russian Federation against Ukraine. And for us, it's also very important to document and to raise awareness not only in Ukraine, but worldwide. And so therefore, thank you so much for hosting this exhibition, which really will help Ukraine to make other nations quite solidarity and help Ukraine not to be tired of Ukraine, but understand that this is really a fight, this Bible fight between evil and good, and in very, very symbolical, very metaphorical, allegorical on different levels. And really so many people in different occupied territories of Ukraine are really looking forward to the liberation of Ukraine, to the support of the rest of the world. And thank you for paying tribute, not only to damaged buildings, but also to people who sometimes paid their lives. And of course, thanks for this possibility to be here with you, to our armed forces of Ukraine. And we always have a tradition to thank our soldiers, our brave soldiers who protect not only Ukraine, but the rest of the world from Russian aggression. Thank you for your attention, and I can make maybe we have, I think, a few moments. I can make some spotlights if you would like to. Yeah, I will take the mic. Okay.
We can follow you.
You can learn more from QR codes. Each stand has QR code, so you can learn more. There are texts in Ukrainian and English. This is in Kherson region, in �㬭𝘶 village, the former German colonies. There is this church which was founded in the former school, because a lot of churches were damaged, destroyed during the Soviet times. And it's also interesting, almost every church, even the new ones, like in Odessa, Transfiguration Church in Odessa, a lot of people say, okay, it's not old, but it was rebuilt when it was destroyed by Soviet regime in Odessa, the biggest cathedral in Odessa, for example. So a lot of churches, temples, praying houses, they survived communists. Many of them survived First, Second World War, and a lot of local people are really in shock that these churches did not survive this Russian aggression. In Izum city, there were very severe battles. And you can see this is an example of house of prayer of the New Life Church, what has left. And we can talk almost about every church, but let me invite you to this one. This is the Holy Trinity Church in 𝘈𝘯𝘥 𝘛𝘩𝘭𝘭, where Russians made the hospital, I told you briefly before. And you can see that the icons in the church are intact. They were not looted. But because of the hole in the dome, which was done because of the tank fire, the humidity, a lot of water on the floor, and the high humidity. So all the iconostases, all icons were full of mold. And interesting enough that Russians did not even spare some very sacred objects. For example, we musificated one candlestick, like a metal candlestick, which is about 2 meters high, and they made it for the hospital for, I don't know in English how it's named, when you put into a van some liquid, and they used it for this medicine. So adjusting. And what is interesting, we also found in this church a lot of medicine which was stored in altar, the most sacred part of a church. And also we have found some books. I was shocked by one book, by one volume of Vladimir Lenin. And it's quite clear that no books were kept in the church. They were brought from local library. And it seems that the Russian soldiers were inspired by the works of Lenin, communist works of Lenin. So it's an ideological brainwashing process. They continued even in such dramatic situation for wounded soldiers. On this opposite side, you can see this big hall. And this is another church close to Kyiv. Near the Kyiv were severe battles. And the biggest number of churches damaged are in Donetsk region, in Kherson, in Kharkiv, in Luhansk, and in Kyiv. Because, you know, when Russians tried to seize Kyiv in 6 days. So a lot of churches were damaged there.
No microphone.
You're too far from the
So,
speakers, that's why we have the interference. Just try to speak without the mic.
okay. And this is the church in the village of Yazivka. It's Zhytomyr region, very close to Belarus border. And this is the first church which was damaged in the beginning of March 2022. It is inscribed into the National Architectural List of Ukraine, built 1862. A lot full of painting of so-called naive art made by local artists, and almost completely destroyed. And what is interesting that during the reconstruction before the war, the architects have found the unexploded shell from the Second World War. And some local people said that this church would survive unless important one sacred icon will stay in this church. And this icon was looted. And some people say because it was looted, the Russian shelling destroyed it. So let me also draw your attention to some more. This is Lukashivka village. This is the brick church which was exploded inside. There was a Russian forces headquarters, medicine and armory provision. Iconostasis also, in a lot of churches, iconostasis were damaged badly. And here you can see in Donetsk region, in the village of Dolina, which is a part of the Svyatogirsk monastery, quite new, and almost completely destroyed during the battles. Also, we have some Muslim center pictured here, and also the former synagogue. Sorry, this is Svyatogirsk Lavra photograph. Maybe you know, in Donetsk region, Svyatogirsk Lavra, founded 13th century, became documented 16th century, was closed as a monastery in 1844 by Catherine II, in 1719, but regained in 1844. During Soviet times, it was changed, its function was changed by communists for so-called resort house, and named after Artem. And maybe you have seen the big sculpture of Artem, made of concrete, which is considered to be a piece of art, of Soviet realistic art. It's very close to this monastery. And it was controlled by Ukraine. Russians did not invade, but they always shelled this monastery, and a few more nuns were killed. Some people who tried to find shelter were killed also during several shellings by Russian forces. The village of Bohorodyczne, it's Donetsk region. The big village, no one not damaged house. Almost everything completely destroyed. And okay. So that's, you can see, you can learn more, but what is important for us is to tell this story of the destroyed or damaged temples of Ukraine, not as a story with unhappy end. For Ukrainians, in a broader context, it is important to launch the process of reconstruction, of revival, of rebuilding. And for us, it's also a unique chance to modernize our cultural infrastructure, to modernize our religious, historical sites. So the National Recovery Council was established by Ukrainian government with a hope earlier or later start the processes of stabilization, early recovery, and reconstruction, finally. So thank you so much for your attention, and please learn more the stories due to QR codes, and we plan that this exhibition will travel this time. One of the versions of this exhibition is displayed in Washington, D.C., in the Museum of Bible. A month ago, it was displayed in front of the US Congress on the Capitol Hill. So for us, it's such a gratitude to unveil this exhibition here. Thank you, Natalia, so much.
I apologize for the technical glitches. We have gone on a walking tour too far away from the speakers, and we had to turn the mic down. But I wanted to point out that Ihor is available for follow-up conversations. We have about 40 minutes to enjoy our companionship and further conversation and exchanges with Ihor. I also wanted to, first and above all, thank you, Ihor, and your team in Kyiv, Ukraine, for doing all the work you have been doing. We will try to amplify your voices as much as we can. Thank you for starting the work you have started. I wanted to thank also a couple of stellar individuals who have been instrumental in setting up this exhibit. My team includes such people as 𝘗𝘬𝘳𝘕𝘬𝘺, Anna Olenenko, who have been running behind all the logistics. I also wanted to point out that Heather Coleman, the capable coordinator and leader of that amazing conference, which is ahead of us. Heather, I don't see you, but thank you so much, Heather. Thank you for, indeed, for directing the religion and culture program in CIOS and being an inspiration for all these events which are taking place today, and finding money. Our communications teams, Andrea and Jen, you have been stellar in supporting and promoting this event. Thank you so much for that. The refreshments are waiting for us. And let's proceed and enjoy some food, but also conversations. And please don't forget, 7 p.m., we start the Memorial 𝘗𝘬𝘺 lecture with the Professor Wolfke being the guest speaker. I am being waived these lovely printouts, which are, for your convenience, located on glass tables. Those describe in English all the churches, so please help yourself to one if you need to, or you can use QR codes. We've managed to translate the descriptions into English just in time for your viewing. Thank you so much for joining us, and see you at 7 p.m. in Telecenter for 𝘗𝘬𝘺 lecture.